And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday mornings off the ball AM. We're going to be going to Russia to speak to John Duggan and Kevin Kilbane. We've got a sit down with Jim McGuinness about the major issues facing Gaelic football at the moment, and we're also going to speak with Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe, fresh from a bronze medal in the World Cup at the weekend. It's his second recent medal, and he's absolutely ripping it up in the modern pentathlon. That's coming up in the next hour or so. In the meantime, we have plenty to talk about, Eoin.
We do, of course. I mean, it is one of the busiest times of the year. It's just a matter of putting your hand into the lucky bag and picking out which item of topic of discussion you want to talk about.
Marcus Rojo?
Okay, let's start with Marcus Rojo.
That was good.
It was, as they used to say on Soccer AM, Techers defined. When people were like, what is Techers? What does Techers actually mean? It's Marcus Rojo. It was a beautiful finish. It stemmed from apparently a half-time Lionel Messi team talk, where, you know, we saw them before them returning to the pitch for the second half, and Messi was like instructing them all to just go for it, have a little bit of belief. So clearly it's something that you would have expected to happen anyway, and that little bit of belief that Lionel Messi gave him the permission to have resulted in him scoring an amazing goal. Of course, it could have gone the other way when Nigeria might have kept possession of the ball a little bit more, and the analysis would have been, where the hell was Marcus Rojo as Nigeria went down the pitch and scored a counter-attack?
Rojo's goal is really good, right? But Leo Messi's goal is one of the all-time great World Cup goals because of the way he kills the ball on his thigh, and then he's clearly not as fast as the guy who's tracking him, and he's like as fast as he can possibly go. The ball dies on his thigh and dies on his foot and goes to the only place that is like far enough away from where the defender's lunge is going to go, onto that part of his right foot that he's not great with, but that all he has to do is swing it and it's going to go into the side netting. That was amazing.
Perfectly in line with the steps that he was taking so that he could do it all while in full sprint.
Amazing.
It was absolutely sensational. It was like the reaction from Diego Maradona afterwards was kind of like something in between, you know, your favorite song coming on in the club and having a full-blown exorcism. It was a very interesting reaction. It was a holy experience almost, if you want to call it that, from Maradona, and it was definitely Lionel Messi's goal was the main reason for all of that reaction.
He was high as a kite.
Well, you know, we can speculate about that. There's absolutely
I mean, emotionally high as a kite.
There's absolutely no form there whatsoever. It was a special goal. Was it the goal of the tournament so far?
I mean, it's an all-time great World Cup goal. Like, so Ronaldo's free kick, because of the context, Toni Kroos's goal, there's been loads of brilliant goals, but there's definitely our team are going out. I've had my greatness questioned. Everybody's saying Ronaldo's better because he's just done this thing, and I've already missed a penalty and we're crapping out and everybody's blaming me. It's like, yeah, okay, I will score one of the best goals I've ever scored in the World Cup.
And he did. Like, in general, was it a performance? Was it a great World Cup performance from Lionel Messi? He was on it for the
first half anyway. It was pretty good.
Half an hour, yeah. It was, yeah. And it almost makes it more special that he still hasn't reached full throttle in his World Cup. Whether or not he's going to is a different story entirely. But the fact that he didn't reach full throttle for a full 90 minutes, it just makes this moment even more special. It makes it more incredible. It was absolutely phenomenal, and everybody wants the underdog to win, except for last night. Argentina was the neutral choice. Everybody wanted Argentina to go through. We probably suspected that they probably would have done it. So
who have they got next?
France, Saturday. They're going to beat France on Saturday.
Oh, I don't know. France don't look very good, do they?
Well, they look quite poor, in fact. They look bad. They don't look anywhere near the sum of their parts, which is always the fear when you talk about this French team. And people, for some reason, had the opinion that it didn't quite happen for them in Euro 2016, despite the fact that they slalomed their way through a couple of magnificent results in front of their own crowd. They thought that they could go on to the next level. They thought that the cohesion between the team would be improved, and lo and behold, that hasn't happened. And Argentina to dump them out this Saturday, despite the fact that Argentina have a lot of holes in their own team.
Here's what's coming up on the show. I've already told you a good bit of this. So Jim McGuinness around about 9 o'clock this morning. Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe. We're going to talk about Kilbane's World Cup. He's got a passport. He's got sorted. Friends in high places have managed to look after Arkev. I'm going to go to JD in Russia a little bit early today because he's boarding a flight. We'll get the details of that in a couple of minutes' time. But now it's time for the sports pages.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Okay, so Jim McGuinness was doing an event for Now TV, that's Sky's streaming service that lets you buy a single day pass for Sky Sports, or a week long or a month long pass, which kind of gets around all that issue of like having to have the Sky box for any of these one-off matches. And at it yesterday, I got the chance to speak to him, and he brought a pretty interesting point that hasn't got that much traction just yet. I know Kieran Cunningham has been banging the drum for this for the last week, 10 days or so, but it's going to come into very sharp relief now and over the next couple of weeks. It's that slight advantage that the Dubs have. Have a look. I do want to make one final point and ask you about the situation where they're through now as Ulster champions and they've got to face Dublin in Croke Park, but this is going to be the group where Dublin have 2 home games in Croker. I mean, obviously everybody pretends that Dublin don't play their home games in Croker, but the truth is they do play their home games in Croker. Is this fair?
No, I don't think it is fair, and I think I think it's a great opportunity for the GAA to say, a lot of these things, a lot of the problems and a lot of the issues that were raised over the last number of years was because Dublin had an unfair advantage, if you like, and this is an opportunity now where if they say that Dublin play their home game and their neutral game in Croke Park, I mean, we were the last team to beat them in 2014 in the championship, so are we seriously trying to suggest that they're going to get beaten twice in the space of a couple of weeks in Croke Park? So it's almost inevitable that Dublin will progress from this group if they're given 2 home games in Croke Park, and I think the right thing to do would be to play the game in Donegal, to play the game in Dublin, and you've got the neutral venue, a Breffni Park, a Clonus. Can you imagine 40,000 people in Clonus for Donegal against Dublin, and what that would bring, to the whole country? It would be a real spectacle, and Jim Gavin has done an incredible job with Dublin, and sometimes they don't get the credit they deserve because people will say they have the money behind them, they have the juggernaut, they have the population base and all, and I think for them to go to Clonus or Breffni or somewhere like that and play in the Lion's Den, if you like, in Ulster, and maybe come out the other side of that and show their absolute true colours in terms of the champions that they are, I think that would be good for Dublin, for Dublin's legacy, and good for football.
Super bonus points for Jim for breaking out the juggernaut in the middle of that, but it's a fair point. Let's play Dublin against Donegal in Clonus. It's the perfect scenario where you do have the Ulster champions who are Donegal, you do have Dublin. Clonus, not quite a midpoint but not far off it. Away we go.
It's a neutral venue. Croke Park isn't a neutral venue. It's as simple as that. Round 1 of the Super 8s is supposed to take place at a neutral venue. It is currently taking place in Croke Park on the weekend of July 14th, 15th. It's not as hard and fast a rule as the Kildare situation is, but it is still stated somewhere in the Super 8s that everybody will have the opportunity to play their first game at a neutral venue, get off on a level playing field, and that's not happening with Donegal. They've got to go down to the patch where they're the only team in the last 4 years to have beaten this great team. And I agree with Jim that it would be good for the Dubs' legacy as well. Like, we constantly go on about this, that it isn't the Dubs' fault, it is the GAA who are making these decisions. And when it comes to Dublin, I mean, they probably want the opportunity for Donegal not to build up some sort of resistance to what they bring to Croke Park themselves. I mean, Dublin build that up during the Leinster Championship. They play there like 2 or 3 times in the provincial championships, and that's it. Donegal haven't played there at all this year. So from a Dublin point of view, they probably want Donegal not to get anywhere near Croke Park, because that way when they get to a semi-final, they'll be like, right, we've got to figure this whole new environment out. It is the only hope that we have of Dublin not finishing top of this Super 8 group, you suspect, as if this game isn't in Croke Park. But that's kind of irrelevant.
Well, it's not. It actually isn't irrelevant, because it's kind of guaranteed that Dublin will finish top of the group now, and everybody's decided, yeah, that's grand, you're straight through to the All-Ireland semi-final, because you've got 2 home games, and home games lead to victories more often than any other characteristic or any other pre-match characteristic. It's a home game leads to the home side winning more often than not, particularly when your team is good as Dublin. So it is unfair. The system is rigged in favour of Dublin, and it doesn't need to be, and there's still plenty of time to, because those tickets aren't on sale. That wouldn't involve a massive redistribution of tickets or money back to people. That's going to be a bit of an issue for the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, small bit.
Game.
The transaction of the season tickets is probably coming out in the next hour or two, maybe. I think it's usually a Wednesday morning that I find with my season ticket anyway, that the money just gets taken out of your account. So that's probably going to happen on an automated basis from seasontickets.ie.
Is it today, yeah?
Today, it's Wednesday's a day. So
all right, if there's any Mayo fans watching, tell us, has the money gone out from your account for the game in Croker, and was it the full 25 quid? Or have they just taken 15 and said, OK, we haven't told you yet, but the game's in Portlaoise/Tullamore/ Newbridge. Imagine if the game was in Newbridge. The game's not going to be in Newbridge, according to Nicky Brennan, who last night was speaking on Off the Ball. He was interviewed by Joe on the news round. Really interesting interview, just kind of saying, look, Kildare have made their point. They need to get on with it, and if they don't get on with it, there's going to be some repercussions.
We are looking at the ultimate embarrassment here, whereby the GAA break their own rule and Kildare will be kicked out of the championship. And Jack Anderson, a lawyer, was on the show this morning as well, professor of sports law at Melbourne. He reckons, looking at the rule book, that Kildare GAA even have an excellent case legally and they could hold up the whole championship. Like, the reality is this thing needs to be sorted very, very quickly. The GAA can't have the spectacle of Kildare at St Conleth's Park on Saturday and Mayo turning up at Croke Park. Do you think it'll come to that? Is there a chance it might actually come to that?
It may. I don't accept what you've just said, that the GAA have broken rules. I don't accept that from my own position as of now, although I haven't admittedly studied the rule book in any great detail, but I don't believe that's the case. But obviously, as of now, both parties, if I could use that term, have taken completely different views, and they will be in potentially different venues. I mean, I think Kildare have to assess that, because if Kildare do not turn up in Croke Park, I don't know what other penalties might very well be landed on top of Kildare. I'm not talking about anything to do with this year's championship or anything like that. I don't know what, because we're in new territory now. But most definitely, if Kildare don't turn up, the blind eye can't be turned to it, because otherwise teams may refuse to turn up for matches in the future and get away. So there will be some repercussions for Kildare. What that will be, I just don't know.
Yeah, but then you'd have to tell me, what have Kildare done wrong?
Kildare have not fulfilled their fixture. This is an official body that has the authority of the GAA Central Council. It has sole authority of the GAA Central Council to make fixtures on behalf of the association. They have decreed, notwithstanding the issues that some of you guys have raised, which are fair enough, they have decreed that the game will be played in Croke Park. Right or wrong, that is an official fixture, and they are not. If they don't turn up, they're not fulfilling an official fixture, and the implications of that, then they have to understand there will be implications for that. What they will be, I just don't know.
Wow. I mean, it's not a threat so much as a fact. There are repercussions if you don't fulfil the fixture, like getting fecked out of next year's championship or having no more home games for a couple of seasons. That'd be a handy solution, wouldn't it? While the ground gets redeveloped, you're banned from having home games anyway. I don't know. That type of language is fairly consistent with the language that has been coming from Croke Park in the only official comments that have been coming from Croke Park throughout this process. You're going to get fecked out of the championship if you don't show up. There will be repercussions if you don't show up, as opposed to, we're all GAA people here. We understand that you've got a case, and in fact you've got a really strong case. What can we do to try and back everybody down from this? How can we all move forward together as a collective with the aim of spreading love and joy for our games? What can we do? No. You don't show up, I'm throwing you out. Which of these approaches is going to make you go, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine, yeah, no problem, I'll do what I'm told? Or yeah, okay, fair enough, we do have a problem, and maybe we were a bit bolshy at the start, but like, you can understand.
Well, you see, Kildare GAA is a mere minion in the eyes of the GAA, I presume. As in, you have to be spoken down to because you are an inferior.
But we haven't won anything.
Exactly. You know, you are going to get spoken down to because of that reason, because of other reasons, and because your puny little ground only holds 9,000 tiny little people. That's why we can talk down to you at the GAA. It seems like they're walking around with this big, massive rubber stamp and listening to Nicky Brennan there. It's like, it's an official fixture, and it's like, how did it become official when you've broken your own rules? Because of the magic GAA rubber stamp, that's why.
Rubber stamp / jackboot. It's like, that's what it is. Kieran Cunningham says, Nicky Brennan also said last night that there's a possibility some counties could lose home advantage in the Super 8s as well. This could get very messy. I don't think anybody's going to lose, like, Super 8 fixtures as it stands for the teams we're going through. Fermanagh should be able to host it. Roscommon should be able to host anybody.
Well, the thing is, probably Roscommon might be the only winner from that round.
But even if they all won, like, so say Laois and Cork and Fermanagh and Roscommon all came through, right? Which obviously the GAA really don't want, because that'll be no Tyrone and no Mayo and...
Yeah, what the most sensational possible permutation would be if Kildare beat Mayo at the weekend, if this game does take place, and Kildare subsequently draw Cork and beat them. That would mean Dublin will be travelling to St Conleth's Park for a Super 8 fixture.
No, they wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't, is correct.
That's in Croker, and we've got 60,000 people at it.
3 games in Croke Park for the Dubs.
I mean, yeah. Oh, I can't talk because my money is bulging into my... I got distracting me. I'm choking on the money. Here is So we'll go back. So Maura Trassa was down in Kildare yesterday because there was supposed to be a press conference at 5 o'clock, and when the press conference at 5 o'clock was cancelled, all sorts of rumours began to sweep the countryside that a deal was being done in the back rooms, and that somehow this game was going to be fixed for Portlaoise or Tullamore. That was the talk yesterday afternoon when the thing was cancelled at 5 o'clock. So Maura Trassa went out anyway to kind of take a bit of the temperature out there and spoke with the former Kildare footballer Dermot Riley about the county standoff for the GAA.
Have you ever become aware of any health and safety issues when it comes to Newbridge? For example, if games are being planned, do people say, we might need to work on this, or we need to flag that, or any issues stand out?
Well, I first went to matches in Newbridge back in 1963. I've had the privilege of watching Kildare play there many, many times. I've had the privilege of being there when we had a full house, and I'm not aware of one single incident of there ever having been a problem in Newbridge. And the suggestion that somehow or other people would turn up in Newbridge and might be antagonistic towards each other out on the street because they don't have a ticket, quite frankly, that's a nonsense. It is not within the culture of the GAA. It is not within the culture of Kildare supporters, nor indeed of Mayo supporters. So that's really a red herring. And if our ground is only capable of holding 1,000 people, just to exaggerate it out of all proportion, so be it. The home advantage is more important to us, given that we're entitled to it.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to work out how you do home advantage in these circumstances. You set a set amount of tickets aside for the season ticket holders, and you divide them in the ratio of the number of season ticket holders there are. And some season ticket holders don't get a ticket for this game because you're not guaranteed a ticket for every game, right? There's just a capacity issue here. And then a set number of tickets, the majority go to the home team because it's a home game. That's the whole point of having a home game. And then the rest goes to if there's any other season ticket holders that didn't get one, you give them to them first, and then you put them on general release. Like, there's a template that you can have that's off the shelf to have these games in any ground in the country. And Bournemouth manage it with like a very small capacity in the Premier League when they have Manchester United coming, or other Liverpool with massive away followings. Easily done if cool heads and clear minds decided that they wanted this to happen.
It's too late now. It is too late for cool heads rather, and clear minds to prevail at this point. It's just like the clock is ticking. It is ticking rapidly until the point where all those Mayo fans are going to have season tickets in their account. Like, this needed to be sorted out straight away on Monday morning. And
you can hit pause on that transaction. There's a computer, there's a big button. You can just go pause, hit the pause. Go on.
But even for people making arrangements for the weekend, I know Newbridge, Dublin, much of this, they're very fortunate that that's the situation. Otherwise, This could be a much bigger shitstorm than it already is.
Yeah, if this was Waterford, say.
Yeah.
Poor Waterford.
But like, I don't know. It just. I got the stench of yesterday from Ned Quinn on the show that there was still an element of everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, you're going to back down. You're going to back down.
That's why I feel that things have taken so long. It is, to a certain extent, an air of arrogance.
OTBAM is live this morning with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. The newspaper headlines very briefly before we get to John Duggan. Kildare GAA have the law on their side. Yes, they do. And this is Professor Jack Anderson's story speaking to us yesterday. And his tweets, which go into great detail about it. That story is up on offtheball.com. Paddy McBrearty, that season is over. We'll talk with Jim McGuinness about the loss of McBrearty and the knock-on impact that it has. And also the news that Felipe Contepomi is back at Leinster. He was speaking with Joe last night on Off the Ball as well. If you want to see that, check out youtube.com/offtheball. GAA is in crisis, championship facing chaos if Kildare are ejected, because they could go the legal route and blow the whole championship up, which obviously isn't going to happen. Some form of a deal will be done. You're my hero. No, not Messi. It's United's Rojo who rescues Argentina. I mean, it was also Messi who kind of rescued them. There's that picture, Rojo, with the finish. Contepomi will add huge amount to Leinster setup, insists Cullen is the lead story on the back of the Indo. Some good stuff from Dan McDonnell in the Indo about the fact that most of the English team have played lower league football. We'll talk to Kev about that a little bit later on. Colin Keys and Will Slattery have the deadlock remains over rejection of Newbridge. Brawley weighing in, saying that the Director General needs to do something about it. If he was the Director General, he would have done something about it. The back page of the Racing Post, helping hand. Danes claim crucial point to seal place in the last 16. It would have been us if only we were any good at football and had Christian Eriksen. That's the narrative that you've been hearing if you were watching any of the Irish coverage of the games. And The Irish Times, Lviv and Germany looking for more improvement. This is obviously victory over South Korea by 2 goals will guarantee a place in the last 16 for Germany today. Ticket sales continuing for the Kildare game at Croke Park, but Lily-White's boss O'Neill still claims it's Newbridge or nowhere for big Mayo clash, he said on KFM yesterday. He doubled down, fair play to him. Cian is not for moving, and yeah, why should he be?
On the back page of the Herald this morning, it's Jim McGuinness.
Irish News, sorry, one last one. Irish News, we'll get the PDF of this. This is Paddy McBrearty's story. McBrearty cruciate injury devastating for Donegal. Loss of top marksman could derail Tyrconnell All-Ireland ambitions, says McGee.
Yeah. Speaking of Tyrconnell, Jim McGuinness saying, do right thing. McGuinness calls on Dubs to play a home croker tie in neutral venue. That's Conor McKeown speaking to Jim as well yesterday on the back page of the Herald. On the back page of the Mirror, it's chaos. Legal challenge by Kildare over tie switch could lead to backlog. And ex-DRA chairman warns Croke Park the Lilies have a good case. That's Jack Anderson quoted as well here on the back page of the Mirror. In the Star then, it's different class. Rojo stunner fires Argentina through while Kildare explored DRA route. And Paddy lost a huge blow. That's Jim McGuinness on Paddy McBrearty speaking to Carl O'Kane in the Irish Daily Star. The Sun then, it's Yessi. Incredible late Rojo winner keeps Leo dream alive as Nigeria get beaten 2-1 by Argentina. The Potters, McLean up. James McLean is closing in on a £5 million move to Stoke City. He didn't fly out with the rest of the squad for West Brom's pre-season training camp in Portugal after the international duty, so he's expecting a move down to the Championship with Stoke City. And then a couple of the UK back pages. Salvation reads the back page of The Guardian. Rojo's late volley saves Argentina. Now they face France. Nigeria knocked out. And the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section is Late Show saves Messi. Manchester United reserve Rojo strikes at the death to keep Argentina in the World Cup.
Yeah, speaking of Argentina, Maradona has issued a statement on Instagram after it was reported that he'd been taken to hospital. I want to tell everybody I'm fine, that I have not, neither was I interned. In the halftime of the game against Nigeria, my neck hurt a little. I suffered a decompensation. I was checked by a doctor who recommended me to go home for the second half, but I wanted to stay because we were risking it all. How could I leave? I sent a kiss to everyone, except Sampaoli. Thanks for the support. He didn't say except for Sampaoli.
Who was he giving the middle fingers to? Was it Sampaoli?
It says
Or was it Gonzalo Higuain after missing that glorious chance?
Nigerian fans. It was after the goal. It was in celebration. But the music is playing. Our antenna are peaked. Come in, the Moscow jury. How are you?
Jaron, good morning.
That is a classic piece of... That's class. Where did you get that? And can we get one for all the team?
They're expensive. I can get you a program though.
I'll wire you the money.
I got a program yesterday. They actually don't have programs, lads, for specific games. So they've got a kind of commemorative program for those of you who are interested, listeners, an audience in programs. They don't have a program for, say, France against Denmark specifically. They've got a commemorative program for the tournament.
Do you collect programs?
No, I'm not a program guy at all. Program is all about anticipation. Program is nothing. Programs to me mean nothing. Memories are my tickets. So I collect all my tickets in terms of all the great tickets that I've been lucky enough to collect over the years. So tickets are in a sacred place at home, because tickets to me, they're the memory of something and they're experiences that I've collected along the way. So I've got tickets go back 30 years of various sports. We could spend about an hour talking about the tickets.
Are tickets not in anticipation as well, John?
No, tickets are the memory. Tickets are the memory. Programs are saying these are the player profiles. This is the history. This is what could happen. I've got a few select programs, like Clare when they're All Irelands, and programs from, I think, Roy Keane's performance against Holland, even though it wasn't at the game. The 1991 FA Cup final when Tottenham beat Nottingham Forest, the last FA Cup final win. I've got that one. I've got the first Spurs game I was at, but generally programs are something I don't really believe in. But tickets I absolutely believe in. Tickets are just completely sacred to me.
You must have thousands and thousands of tickets.
Well, I kind of separate them into the ones that really matter and then the ones that don't. So and that's kind of a very kind of harsh thing to say because every game is special. But I have like a rugby section. I've got a Tottenham Hotspur section. I've got a Republic of Ireland soccer section, including away games. I've got a horse racing section. I've got a golf section. So yeah, there's very special things in there going back 30 years, and they're in a pride place in a drawer. So if the house is burning,
I feel a video series coming on here.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some. I hate when I go into bathrooms of pubs and just see tickets on like it's got a wall. It just disgusts me. I want to see I'm guarding the tickets here with my life, and they're very pristine. I don't want them in any way dog-eared or bent. And this is a bit fastidious, but they get them put into a certain drawer. If they're in the A list or within the elite tickets, they get put into a certain drawer, and then I rearrange them every 6 months. This is quite this is not actually how I'm like as a person, but in this instance, I'm quite.
I do see like a second part of this where you're going around the pubs of Ireland tutting at everybody for the tickets in the toilet. This is disgusting. Look at this.
Well, I mean, I've seen this like England Ireland 1995, the James Eager game, when the one that was abandoned. I've seen this kind of stuff in pub bathrooms and gone, this is like an iconic Irish sporting moment for the wrong reasons. And what is this doing here? This should be kind of, I don't know, in some frame or something, in a bar, like out in the bar. So I've got some good ones. But yeah, hopefully we'll get a few more here.
I can't imagine what you would say if we were to ask you about e-tickets. I'd say you absolutely despise e-tickets if you hate the actual physical nature of them being up in a place that's not your own home.
Well, it's funny because the first ever day I was in America in my life, I went to see the Yankees. The first ever day, and I got an e-ticket, and I have no idea where it is. So I would agree with you, Eoin, that it has to be in that physical form, that you have to have that piece of paper. So there's only very few that are missing. The 1994 hurling final is missing. I don't know where it is, but I have the program for that, so that compensates it. It makes it okay in my mind. But generally, I've got everything else.
Before we talk about the football, what's the story with the Soviet Union gear? Is it like knocking about, or do people frown on it? Do they kind of think about it as like something cool and historic? Is there nostalgia for it? What's the story?
I think there is a lot of nostalgia for the Soviet, like with all the statues of Lenin, and primarily Lenin. Of course, people, you're looking at Russian fans in the stadiums, they're wearing the Ushankas, or as we would call them, the Bolshevik hats with the hammer and sickle. So there's a lot of nostalgia for the Soviet era here. I was in Nizhny Novgorod the other day, and I was walking past this really kind of high-end fashion store, and they had footballs and these kind of, as I said, almost like hipster tops with the CCCP. This was like a blue Russian training top. It's redesigned in the blue Soviet training top. Of course, when you're the Soviet Union, like CCCP is USSR, as we all know. So, I just spotted it and I couldn't resist, and I had to just go in there and get it.
Yeah, no, it's class. Okay, so one last question. Is Moscow an expensive city to be around? Like, do you feel like this is you're in Sweden, basically, or
no, more
Berlin?
No, I feel it's a little bit cheaper. I feel it's about a 60-70%. City, and I think you can get quite a cheap meal. Like a McDonald's costs about €6 or maybe €5. It's like generally €1 or €2 or €3 cheaper than everywhere else. Like a bottle of water is about 70 cents. A chocolate bar is less than it would be in Ireland. So it's just a little bit cheaper, and I think that you can eat quite cheaply here. Obviously, if you're drinking imported beer, like the local beer costs between €2 and €3. The imported beer could be between 5 and 7. So if you shop around, you can get by pretty cheaply here in Moscow.
Yeah, just because it's interesting. Like Danny Rose has come out and said that he would now recommend that his family come. He's not concerned about the possibility of racism anymore, having been out in Russia for a little while. It's beginning to feel like Russia was a brilliant choice for a World Cup, a brilliant place. Pat Nevin was on last night raving about St. Petersburg as a city as well, and it's kind of in keeping with the type of communiques we've been receiving from you, unless there is somebody off camera who has you will tell everybody this is absolutely amazing, John, which I'm not ruling that out either.
If it wasn't amazing, guys, I would tell you that it isn't amazing and I'm having a terrible time here, but I'm having a brilliant time, and a lot of that's down to the organisation. Now, there is a huge sense of control here. Like yesterday, I've seen this before, when I walked out of the Luzhniki, imagine walking down a hotel corridor, which is quite narrow, and you've got police, Gardaí on either side of that corridor, and you're walking, with them on the left and the right side. And I was walking towards the Luzhniki metro, and I'm just looking at these. They're kind of a level above the normal police. They're kind of in combat uniform. Very young people in terms of their defence forces or whatever. So it's a case that there is a huge amount of control. There are police everywhere. So control can act in two ways. It can act as a good way, in that you feel extremely safe here and you feel that this is organised better than anything else. I mean, I suppose you can't really I suppose Russia won the biggest, or the Soviet Union won the biggest battle of mankind in contemporary times, Stalingrad, so they know how to organize things. And control can then work in a different way if you look at it more suspiciously, or if you look at it as a negative tool of the state. So in terms of the control of this World Cup and the organisation and everything being put on and bells and whistles and doing handstands, it's been done in the right way. If you were to come here in January or February with no other foreign nationals here, how would you feel? Would you feel in any way kind of nervous or that, or what would people be like? Would they be friendly? And all you can do is based on your own experience. My own experience is people be extremely friendly. I don't think it's put on. I think it's natural, and I just think that if there's any legacy for the Russian people, they have to this could be a brilliant place for tourism. They don't have a tourism industry here at all. The ruble has suffered in recent years. The sanctions have made it a more difficult place to live. People are poorer here than they were 6 or 7 years ago. I was speaking to a bar owner who said that the bars that he's involved in were thronged 6 or 7 years ago. Now they're more half full. And I think that if there's any legacy for Russia is that they have to, this effectively is tourism for a month. This is a tourism project that they've engaged in with over 1.3 million people for a month around their country. Everybody says, and you're looking at the historical buildings, the classical buildings, there's lots of things to do. Obviously, we're not in the 6-month period of the year where it's snowing and it's grim. But I think there's a huge opportunity. If people can just trust each other a little bit more in terms of governments, not people, the ordinary people are generally fine everywhere you go. But if governments can trust each other a bit more and stop the nonsense, then I think, there could be a great legacy here in terms of people, it being a more open country for people to visit.
Okay. One last question on this before we talk about football. You mentioned the Battle of Stalingrad. Have you had much time to absorb any of the history or do any of that kind of engage with that element of Russia's history?
Only on the surface, Ger. I mean, I want to see. I've passed by the mausoleum of Lenin. I'd like to go into the tomb. I'd like to see the Kremlin. So I'm just getting a surface glance on things at the moment, but I'm hugely interested in, like a lot of people are, in the Soviet Union. And I think the Red Army deserved a lot more credit than they got for in World War II. I think it's what happened subsequently that kind of coloured people's view about the Iron Curtain and the Soviet Union. So it's just fascinating to be even just kind of inhaling the air of Nizhny Novgorod and Gorky and just thinking that you're just thinking to yourself, you just walked out of a mad situation with Panamanian fans when they're going crazy and you're in the middle of it, and you're thinking back 30 years where this was a closed city where Andrei Sakharov, for example, is exiled and nobody can get in here. It's a military branch, and the people that are living there at the time think that this is the way it's going to be forever. And then 30 years later, you have this carnival going on in this country. So the tides of history are amazing. I think the World Cup, I think it's the only thing in the world, folks, that has able to penetrate countries this way. And I think that's why I think this is such a brilliant experience for a lot of people that are coming over here and observing it. I think the Republic of Ireland fans would have had an absolute ball here. And it's such a shame that I was watching Denmark yesterday instead of them. But that's why I kind of worry about the 48-team World Cup, and with Qatar, first of all, forget about it. But I'm a bit worried about the 48-team World Cup and spreading these things around countries, because I think Moscow has been a great hub for the kaleidoscope of colour and culture that I've seen. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the football. Yesterday, relatively uneventful until Marcus Rojo, with about 8 minutes left of normal time, managing to squeeze Argentina through to the round of 16. Sometimes we see these moments in World Cups and you go on and you go, okay, well, that was the bit where the team suddenly understood exactly what their potential was. But for me, this felt like a stay of execution rather than anything else. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's all about the moment. I think that they can put Fair City, home and away, days of our lives in the halfpenny place, Argentina, in terms of soap opera. They're the story of the World Cup for me. It's not VAR, it's not the story. Argentina are the story, from Messi's missed penalty against Iceland to the Sampaoli and Willy Caballero inspired capitulation against Croatia, to last night, which had Sampaoli making 5 changes. Some of them were good, like Benega, obviously putting that magic ball on a plate for Messi, with that beautiful touch on the thigh, the left transferred to the right and buried it for that opening goal. to the fact that Sampaoli's back in the dugout by the time Messi was given a halftime team talk, which we wanted to see. We wanted to see that leadership from Messi, which he showed last night, actually, in terms of whether he's doing it in the dressing room or in the other games or not, but demonstrably in terms of everybody watching Messi doing this. Of course, the panic sets in then when the soap opera, when Mascherano, I think his legs are gone, conceded that penalty, which was a penalty. But then Marcus Rojo, of all people, Manchester United, hasn't played that much this season. Nonchalantly, like he's in a training ground session, just volleying it in 4 minutes to go, and then the whole place goes crazy. We saw those virals from Buenos Aires, which are just fantastic. And it is a state of execution, Gerard, I agree with you. And then you have Maradona, the Maradona show, from the crossing his hands and looking to the skies, to dancing with a Nigerian lady, to falling asleep, to being assessed by paramedics, to giving the 2 fingers, Dele Alli style, to I don't know who he's doing it to, but yeah, it's a soap opera, and it's a great soap opera, and they are the story. They've got the best fans that I've seen, but yeah, you'd have to. It's a roller coaster. They're great going forward, but behind that, it's hold on tight, lads.
Like, quite a lot of winning a World Cup is just about being able to handle that roller coaster that you mentioned there, being able to handle the process of crazy stuff happening on a constant basis and being able to come through that. Like, the fact that Argentina have been able to prevail in the face of this incredible adversity, like, we thought they were finished after that Croatia match. For them to be able to prevail in the face of that is a huge attribute that they will now have going forward. And coming up against France on Saturday, I know you've tipped them to go very deep into this tournament, John, but I'm giving the edge to Argentina in this one.
I think from an emotional or almost like a religious zeal, I think that Argentina have that. They have that zeitgeist at the moment. The only problem with that is that you have to have the quality to back it up. Now, they have it going forward, but what's he going to do? Is he going to change the formations again? I don't think Sampaoli. I don't think we saw the Messi Sampaoli handshake. It was like Roy Keane and Mick McCarthy after the Holland game. It was Messi wasn't even looking at him. His best pal isn't in the team, Sergio Aguero. And I just worry about when you have the industry of Conte and Pogba and the attacking abilities of players like Kylian Mbappe, what they can do from a football point of view to Argentina. But I would agree, having gone to France and Denmark yesterday, it was an absolute waste of 90 minutes for Didier Deschamps. What was he doing? 6 changes, no tempo to the match. They both knew that they go through with a draw. And it was not a game. We're going to see this in 64 matches, but it was not a game to grace any World Cup. And what did France learn out of yesterday? Absolutely nothing to me, because they didn't play. It was like an end of season friendly, which I really hate to say about a World Cup game, but it was a snooze. Mbappe was the only player that I was lit up by in the last 12 minutes when he came on. Fekir tried to do a bit. I was more actually impressed with Denmark and the way they set up, and the fact that they've let Christensen in front of the back four, who's a ball playing player, really good on the ball for Chelsea, and Eriksson lively enough, although didn't get much change. But I think Denmark will cause Croatia problems, and they're very well set up, and they're the kind of team that are going to win matches on penalties. That's the way I see Denmark. But I think there's a lesson in it for Gareth Southgate. The way Deschamps set up his team yesterday. And France, if they dazzled in the first 2 games, you'd say fine. But to just turn on the tap in a World Cup last 16 match probably goes in line with your thinking a bit, Eoin, that I don't think it's as easy as that. No,
it isn't. Unless you have a Zidane, and maybe Pogba becomes a Zidane over the course of this World Cup, but there's been no evidence of it.
Well, the evidence of it would be the Mascherano performances. Do they just stick Pogba on Mascherano and say, follow him around, go into the space where Mascherano is guarding, and go and have the best game in a French shirt you've ever had, Paul?
And he'll get penalties, multiple.
Potentially.
John, a tweet from Issel Cody. I knew I wasn't alone. Tickets in boxes divided up, except favourite games in the frame by bed. Divided by most significant to me, which include league games nobody else would consider big. Even includes a train ticket to one game, which didn't have a physical ticket. And just looking there, it's a lot of rugby and hurling tickets.
Well, fair play, Isolt. I think we all have our distinct passions, and there's definitely some tickets that I would absolutely cherish. I'll bring them in when I come back. I'll bring them in, and I think everybody's got their collection. I mean, Jared, I know, and I'm sure you might have a thing for programs.
I'm way too sentimental.
What have you got? What do you do?
Everything: programs, tickets,
have it all.
Whatever, like team sheets. train tickets to match, everything.
I've had
shoeboxes and shoeboxes and shoeboxes.
I've had multiple clear outs, so kind of had to get over having any nostalgic connection stuff. Don't have that much. Had a Villa, first ever Villa game ticket from April '91. That was about it. There was like a few, maybe a first All Ireland hurling final, but I think they're all gone.
It's a shame. That's overly unsentimental right there.
One from Michael Kelly. I keep the rugby tickets in my wallet, both Munster Heineken Cup victory tickets and 2018 Slam game, and a few others. The GAA ones are in a box at home. I did bring in my Grand Slam ticket. It's over my shoulder behind the American football, which you can't see behind the American football. I'll get it now. Get it down. I'm supposed to do this, breaking the fourth wall. Whoa. So that was. That's it. I'm not saying.
I have one of those. I have one of those. It's in the rugby section. Including an invite to dinner in 2006 for the aftermatch Ireland-Scotland thing. So, but rugby isn't even my favourite sport. So there's just things in there. I had this. It was quite a funny thing to digress a little bit. I was only the Grand National once as a journalist in 2002, and it was sponsored by Martell, and they gave this beautiful commemorative little kind of naggin of brandy with an inscribed thing at the back, and I left it there for years, and in my mother's house, and. About a decade later, I saw the bottle and the brandy gone. And I said, what are you doing? And my mother's a teetotaler and she's not into alcohol at all. And she says, well, I put it in the cake. And I'm kind of going, what have you done? This is like the commemorative 2002 Grand National. I would have had this for 30 years and you put it in the cake. And I'm kind of going, what are you doing? But yeah, there's all of that kind of stuff.
So you found a good home, though. The cake is a suitable. I would accept that.
I don't like fruitcake. So yeah, that's the madness. So like because everything is quite sanitized, guys, in terms of the World Cup. I'm just going to hold up the program here.
Yeah.
That's the program. That is the program for every single game of the World Cup. So it's kind of like it goes through, the teams and the groups and that. It's more of a commemorative souvenir than an actual program. Yeah. That's why you need to get the stuff behind you to make it. Or this other thing, like this is the kind of the box of tricks in my hotel room. This is the Stalin doll.
Ah, class.
And when you open up the Stalin doll, you get Lenin.
Does it end at Putin?
No, I've got another. Putin's a separate one, and this is I think this is one of the Tsars. No. In the Putin one, you have Yeltsin and Gorbachev.
Ah, cool. Oh yeah.
So that these are the kind of things I've been picking up along the way.
Good, so, mad, and evil is the order of that one. Yeah. You're on the way to a game tonight. You're hopping on a train or a plane or something.
I'm going to Brazil, Serbia. Here in Moscow in Spartak. I'm going to England, Belgium tomorrow in Kaliningrad, but I haven't seen Brazil in the competition yet. I'm looking forward to the Neymar cam, which is what I'm going to be doing, watching Neymar for the whole thing and just seeing how good that Flock of Seagulls haircut is that he has. I don't know if anybody knows the Flock of Seagulls were the 1980s. They were a 1980s synth pop band who had a few hits in America. They were from England. But that's a quirky thing. Yeah, I'm interested in Brazil. I'm interested in the colour that they're going to bring. Spartak Stadium is a really cool stadium because it's only about 40,000. It's just outside a metro station, and I'm looking forward to the colour that the fans are going to bring. And obviously, all they need to do is beat Switzerland's result to get through. But they'll be hoping to win and top the group. And of course, they could be facing Germany by South Korea today down in Kazan.
Nice one, John. Enjoy the Brazilians tonight. Thanks a million.
All right, lads. Cheers.
John Duggan, our man in Russia. Risteard Cooper's been doing his thing for OTB. We've got some brilliant news. He's on OTBAM with Kenny Cunningham. This for in person. It's Kenny plus Kenny, aka Risteard. Check this out.
Damien Duff is in there. He's kind of, it's kind of everything seems sort of fairly self-evident. It's like almost like what's the point in commentating on anything because it's like fairly obvious and self-evident. Like what's the point anyway? In even being here. There's a bit of that going on with him. He's very cool, isn't he? He's kind of looking, like looking the other way. Like, and it's just like, what's the point in even answering the question? But I suppose when the question is being asked by who, you can't necessarily blame him. But yes, the questions have been, will Brazil, do you think, prefer Damien to be playing Japan in the next round, if that were possible? It's hard to answer that question. I know it's Kevin Doyle as well. Kevin Doyle is, he looks a little bit like an owl. Kevin Doyle. And sounds a bit like Dennis Irwin, even though he's from he's obviously from Wexford.
But he's, he's pretty good. He's fairly self-assured, I think, talking. And then, of course, I got, what's his name, Shay Given, is talking so quickly. It's unbelievable. It's like an elastic band in his mouth. Absolutely incredibly quickly. Obviously, we're going to go left or right, you wouldn't really know. But obviously, if you're going to commit as a goalkeeper, go to the right. Obviously, you can't go to the left. Damien was talking about, when you're bouncing up and down, you're wasting time because there's a bit of a gap between when the ball is struck and when you might die left or right. But I mean, there's going to probably
All right, we've got Kev with us. Good morning, Kev.
Good morning, Jay. How's it going?
Yeah, Richard Cooper hasn't done you yet, I don't think.
He can't get that Lancashire accent, can he? That's the thing. Struggle with that one.
I see you didn't only lose your passport, you lost your shaver as well, did you?
I'm gonna have a shave this morning, Jay. That's what it is. Yeah, just let it grow out for a few days. Just got a big game tonight, so I've got to look my best for that. I think that's the way it is.
Yeah, very good. How's life?
Everything's good. Everything's good. Yeah, I travelled from Moscow to Kazan yesterday, so I had a good look round Kazan yesterday. Actually, it's again unbelievable place, unbelievable spot. Honestly.
Why?
Well, we got out yesterday, went up to the Kremlin. Kremlin that was it was built. I couldn't even tell you the year by Ivan the Terrible. It's like it's a huge fort that he built. It's like something out of a fantasy world. Honestly, the place, how he's like fortified his small little town that he built. Again, I should be able to have the year for you, Jay. I should be able to give you a little bit of history on it, but. Just an amazing place and how it's been maintained over the years and how they've looked after it. And then, so it's obviously like it's a free place to get in, have a look around everywhere, and just incredible, just an amazing place. And again, as I've spoken about everywhere else across Russia, people very, very friendly and great, very welcoming. Yeah.
How do you get to Kazan from Moscow? Because it's like I just googled it there. It's an 11-hour drive. Did you fly?
We flew, yeah. I was actually talking to Dan McDonald the other night in Moscow. He was down there. I met Dan. We had a bit of dinner. And Dan is actually arriving in Kazan this evening as well. But Dan's got the train up. So it's a 14-hour train. Oh. But ours was about an hour's flight, I think it was, anyway. So, yeah, I'll be chatting to Dan to exchange stories later on, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's the BBC versus the Independent right there. You got your passport, it's all sorted, you're a free man, you can leave the country anytime you want, right?
Yeah, I can't find it. I've been given a temporary passport at the moment. So I think next Tuesday, Wednesday, I believe I'll have my full passport, but I've got a temporary passport to travel on at the moment. Yeah.
How did you lose your passport?
Have you not been involved in any of the conversations, Eoin?
Is this literally the first you've heard of this?
Well, I'm not quite aware how you lost it. I'm aware that you lost it.
He had it stolen on the metro.
Okay.
That's what happened.
Okay.
It's getting off the
on what?
No, oh, sorry. Go on, ask your question, Eoin, because I wouldn't want to cut across you. Sorry.
I was just going to ask: did you see the suspect? Did you feel your pocket being invaded at any point?
I didn't feel my pocket being invaded, no, but I did feel someone come up behind me for several steps. Yeah, it was a strange scenario. Jay's reaction, he's giving it the old wink. But do you know what? I can honestly say I don't know. That was the last time I remember having a passport, and I hadn't seen it since. It was 24 hours before, and I kind of didn't pay too much attention to it, and that was the only logic solution that I can come up with, to be honest here.
Let's talk football to rescue this slot in particular. So, what are you looking for tonight? It's the Brazil game, right?
Oh, I'm at Germany. I'm at
Germany
South Korea, Germany. South Korea, Germany this afternoon. Yes. So that's the one I'm at. Yeah. I mean, it's Germany under a bit of pressure after that first game against Mexico. So I expect them to beat South Korea. I think they've got too much of them. I think momentum from that last game. The late goal against Sweden from Toni Kroos. I probably expect a continuation of that, really. Maintain what they probably showed in the last 20, 25 minutes, I think, in that one, because I don't think they were great in the first half against Sweden. I think they were conceding too many chances. But that momentum that they've gained from that now, I expect them to go on and probably get through handily enough here tonight. They've
conceded in all of their last 7 games, Germany have, Kev. To what extent is that just a lack of protection from the midfield, or just a lack of cohesion in the midfield in front of the defence that's leaking goals so much for them at the moment?
Yeah, badly exposed, Owen. It's spot on from midfield. Matt Summels, after that Mexico game, first of all, said, look, yeah, we obviously, yeah, good side, he said, but we cannot continue the way we're going, where literally we have 9 players or 8 outfield players just bombing forward, leaving myself and Jerome Boateng exposed defensively. Mexico took a chance on that. Sweden probably took a bit of a chance than that as well. They went a little bit direct at times, put Germany under pressure. And they do look like they're going to concede, but I could probably say the same about every one of the top sides here. I won't necessarily say that, France don't like they're going to concede. Brazil don't look like they're going to concede. So it'd be a huge worry if you're a Germany fan, if you're watching Germany thinking, yeah, we're going to go on, we're going to win this World Cup. I think we're going to go on exposed sides, which they can do. They proved that against Sweden, even at times against Mexico, played decent football, but they look badly exposed to me. That's what puts me off Germany massively, more than probably the other ones, because I think they've conceded more chances than a lot of the other better sides in the tournament.
Germany to win, both teams to score is 15-8.
I think it's a good shout. It's a great shout. I think, yeah. It's just how they go about defensively, Joe. Yeah, not that it's certainly not something I'd be looking at because out here you can't get onto your account. So anyway.
That's a pity.
Yeah.
a VPN, we'll sort you out with one of those.
Right.
Want to talk briefly about Messi, because obviously we were talking about Marcus Rojo's goals, got loads of this is an amazing thing because Marcus Rojo scores and it gets them through, but I was making the point that Leo Messi's goal is actually one of the all-time great World Cup goals because it's one movement, the ball stops, drops dead on his thigh, drops dead on his foot and goes to the one spot that the defender's lunge isn't going to make it, and again the one spot that his right foot can actually whip it in from. It's like absolute perfection from the greatest footballer of all time.
Yeah, I can't argue with anything there. Incredible skill, as you say. First of all, there's a lot of factors within it. Yes, the ball has to be perfect. The timing of the run has to be perfect, which both are absolutely perfect. But then, how many times have we seen it when a ball is played like that? The control just lets the player down, just gets away from them. But for Messi to control it on his thigh, and you even see the way that he's manipulated the ball, he's kind of angled his body, took it across his body, so he knows then full well he's the wrong side of the Nigerian defender. So if the defender is going to make a challenge, he's probably going to give a penalty away. So to put it then back into his path, as you say, he's never going to be able to get it back onto his stronger left foot. So then he's got to whip it across the keeper with his right foot. It was everything about it was total genius. It was an incredible finish, and we've been waiting for Messi to start. That was the thing. We wanted Messi to have a big impact on the tournament. Now all of a sudden he has done. He still wasn't great last night. Watching Argentina again last night. It was desperation stuff for them, really, wasn't it? Trying to find Messi the whole time throughout the game, not able to free him up in decent positions. But that goal was a true moment of magic. Yeah.
It helps as well that they seem to have found a sort of fulcrum in midfield to a certain extent, that surely now against France, Sampaoli cannot leave Ever Banega on the bench.
Well, you look at the bench, got the substitutions they're bringing on last night, though, Owen, as well. Yeah, Banega, yes, they have to play him. It gives them, I think it gives them a bit more balance. It looks to me as well like the players, even at half-time when you've seen them coming out, Mascherano and Messi were kind of leading the huddle before they even got back onto the pitch. It seems like now the players have taken over. It seems about what we're doing on the pitch. We are actually going to have to take over the running or the management of this team. But yet, Banega has to start. You're struggling for a goal. You've got to get Dybala into the team. How can you not try to get a Messi and a Dybala into that side? How can you not try and get these creative players playing behind, whether it's Eoin or whether it's Aguero? They've got so much talent from the attacking side. And he's sacrificing, I feel, playing a Dybala or whoever it would be. And then you've got a Banega who can produce unbelievable things as well. They've got a bit of a balanced side. Defensively is where they're going to struggle because they can't stop side scoring against them. They're not going to be able to stop side scoring against them. But yeah, it doesn't seem like Sampaoli's got the balance right of that team at all.
No, like last night's team just doesn't make sense because I think you'd be very hard pressed to find anybody who would disagree with you on the point about Dybala there, because like he's absolutely sensational. He's arguably their second best player, and
yeah.
Lionel Messi was playing on the right hand side for the opening stages of last night's game. If that was the formation that Jorge Sampaoli is actually setting up his team with, why the hell isn't Dybala playing at number 10?
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Owen, I don't understand the logic in it. I don't understand the logic in I mean, there was talk even before the tournament when we had Tim Vickery on the show. It was probably a month, 6 weeks ago now, whenever it was. Still a doubt whether or not he was actually going to pick the baller. It's almost like a token gesture to relieve a bit of pressure on him while he's put him in the squad. He's not looking to play him, but you're chasing a goal in the last 20 minutes of a match. You're struggling. You're not playing real decent football. Everything's breaking down. Get him on the pitch. Get that type of player on the pitch because he can do something. And it is crazy. In my mind, it seems crazy.
I wanted to ask you about something that Dan had in the note today. Actually, it's a pretty interesting piece of nugget of information that he's worked out, that the majority of the starters in the England team all actually didn't play for top club academies, that most of them played lower league football. I think it's 9 or 10 of the starting 11, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, but actually might be one of the most important things that conclusions that we draw from this is that maybe the academy system isn't really fit for purpose.
Well, I think we ourselves can learn from it. It's something that we've talked about over the years, where it's not necessarily been in top academies now. Getting kids into academies at 15, 16, with the likelihood is they will not make it. That's what it is. So developing our structure over in Ireland it's a necessity, and that's the way that it's been over the last 10 years. But you look over in England, it's the same. I didn't come through one of the top club academies. I came through the bottom tier, played in every single division across England. You look at Harry Kane and his development. Harry Kane was considered or was deemed not good enough when he's gone on loan to Millwall, when he's gone on loan to Leyton Orient, when he's gone on loan to these sides. He's thinking, no, it's not going to happen for him. Tottenham didn't really fancy him. And we're talking when he's 20, 19, 20. He's not as if he's like 17, 18 at this stage. They were thought of Harry Kane, no, he's probably not going to be good enough. He's not quick enough. He's not technically gifted enough, but he's worked at his game. And I think the lads that come through the lower league system, like Jamie Vardy, the story's incredible with Jamie Vardy as it is, but the lads that come through or not necessarily been able to develop at one of the top academies, and they've dropped off and they've gone through the system, it seems to me that they have a better, I wouldn't say grounding, but it seems to me that playing that not that technically slower type of football, where it's developing so technically advanced footballers. Seamus Coleman, another one, he spoke about it when he went to Everton. He said, I was as far off as you can imagine technically from every player that I was playing against in training. I think Seamus was 20, was he 21 when he went over? He was playing with the under-18s. He said, I was absolutely nowhere near them. But what he's got, he's played men's football, he's played football that's competitive, and he's played football that's actually quite meaningful. And all of a sudden then he starts to develop and become our best player, obviously the captain. So that is the massive difference. Playing that men's football, playing that competitive football, I think it's better for players. And that's why League of Ireland continues to have and will continue to have, has had and will continue to have such a massive part of our players going forward, or play a massive part in our players going forward. 10
of the 11 players on the pitch at full time in the game at the weekend had played at lower level. Ruben Loftus-Cheek was the only one who'd come straight through the Chelsea Academy to the senior international team. So this is something that we should be kind of saying. The league is really important for players, particularly if you want to come back from England. Don't view it as a massive step down or a setback. Think of it as, I'm going to play football against men in a full-time competition, and that's your way to get back to wherever it is that you're going to go.
Even at the start of it, at the start of a youngster's career, though, Jay, 15, 16, don't necessarily see it as, I have to go to England. It's got to be the way forward for me. Yes, coming back, that's heartbreaking enough if they do go over and come back, because that does seem like it's the end of the road in many respects. But even the start of it, don't necessarily see, even when you're going over to England, don't necessarily see it as, I have to go to a Liverpool, Man United, a Chelsea, a Man City, one of the real top academies. It doesn't necessarily need to be that way. Going to a championship club or going to even a League 1 or 2 club might be better for career progression in the next 5 years of your career, up to 21, 22, because you may get first team football, which I feel is way, way better than playing academy football until you're 23, 24.
Just before we let you go, we must ask you about Brazil. They're up against Serbia this evening.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed qualification just yet. In fact, Brazil, Serbia and Switzerland could all finish first, second or third. So it's going to be a pretty interesting end to that group. But Kev, just kind of like a reminder of a stat that you could have read out before the tournament, just their form going into the World Cup 2018. They had lost one match in 21, Brazil that is, and in the build-up to the tournament, they scored 47 goals and conceded just 5 in those 21 matches. So like, it's pretty clear that Brazil have not lived up to that form whatsoever, but it would give them a lot of hope. It gives a lot of hope that there is a potential explosion coming, and you would still have them very, very close to favourites for this World Cup.
I would, yeah, definitely would have them favourites. The players that they've got within the side, individually, they're as good as anybody. It's just not probably worked collectively for them. That's probably why they go into this last game having to win. Serbia, no pushovers though. Anyone watched? I was at the Switzerland game. Serbia are a very, very good side. They're quite direct. They can play direct, but they've also got real good players behind them, behind Mitrovic, who plays up front for them. So I would imagine today, let's try and get it up to Mitrovic early. Let's try and put Brazil under pressure defensively. The players that they've got in behind are excellent. They've got creative players. So I wouldn't rule Serbia out qualifying today, but I just think Brazil, like Argentina last night, I mean, I'd pretty much ruled Argentina out because it was just prior to that Nigeria match when Nigeria won the last but one game, when it gave Argentina hope. I think Brazil tonight, much the same. You have to produce it. You've got to get out of the group. You've got to win the game, essentially. And I think they will do. I think they've got too much.
Kev, great stuff. Enjoy. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Jay. Cheers, Eoin.
Kev with us there from Russia this morning as well. We're going to speak with Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe about his bronze medal at the weekend in the World Cup in just a moment. But first, Derek McGrath was on last night with Joe talking about a bunch of stuff. It's a really wide-ranging interview. It lasts over half an hour. You can check the whole thing out on youtube.com/offtheball and hit subscribe on YouTube for all of our good stuff. And we'll ping you notices whenever we do update the YouTube feed. But here he is and what advice he'd give to himself if he had the chance to go back.
If you were to sit down with yourself 5 years ago, if some magical moment, you get a 5-minute chat with yourself 5 years ago, what's the key principle or two you would say, look, Derek, your instinct is going to do X or Y. It turns out that's the wrong thing to do. I need you to do this. Or would you have any big piece of advice?
I'd probably be a little bit more unconcerned as to what people think, if you like, you know. And I think,
what was the thing that bugged you the most? Was the tactics?
Yeah, not really. But I think if I go to year one, I had a really good backroom team, which I did for the whole lot of it. But the perception would have been to just allow them to play, like, you know. And I was just saying to myself, no, in my own head, no, because not that I'm stopping them playing, but they need a certain element of structure. And I didn't implement that kind of myself, like, you know. I kind of almost, and I made massive mistakes even at the end of the year when we were kind of not dispensing with, but we were omitting a number of guys from the squad, and I just felt even, you know, there was a freedom, and it sounds terrible to the players, a freedom involved not when they were gone, but there was almost a new leaf turned over when I made the decision to make the squad my own as such.
Yeah,
you know, and it became my squad, or our squad, if you like, in terms of where we wanted to go with it and what way we wanted to go about it. And I think, look, defensively, based on what we conceded in year one, we had to do something in terms of gaining traction. And it was just constantly trying to tweak that along the way. Yeah, it's difficult, constantly trying to get it to evolve, whilst fighting perception at the same time that, hey, listen, it's only a battle that I'd imagine Kevin Walsh and Galway is going to face in the next couple of months, and in terms of, you know, in terms of Davy will face it in Wexford, in terms of how different teams set up, etc. And it's having a kind of an innate belief system, to stick with that when it's necessary.
I think that he'll be brilliant the next time round.
Yeah, he will.
From the get-go, and there'll be such a high expectation, but enjoy your retirement, temporary as I hope it is. He deserves it.
Going back to work, basically.
Yeah.
Is it definitely going to be Waterford? Is that definitely going to be the next inter-county job? I wonder, is there
a possibility of somewhere else?
Is there a county that could, you know, just pique his interest a little bit?
I'm sure.
A project county, something like Davy going into Wexford, where you see a bit of potential. Like, maybe if you look at what Kevin Martin is doing with Offaly, is there enough of a trajectory there where they could get back onto a level of parity somewhat with the rest of Leinster, and then it's like, right, you've taken us as far as we can go now.
That would be a bit harsh, wouldn't it? I think that I think it feels like Offaly needs somebody from Offaly at the moment.
They probably do. It's all speculation.
I mean, the obvious one is the Davy project. It's like after Davy goes, traditionally comes in for a short period of time, and you can always move on.
Yeah.
And he's right there. It's right there. The mileage will be less.
Yeah, that's true. The mileage is the key thing, though, isn't it?
And I don't think it is at all for I think Waterford is the only thing that he'll ever take, and he'll be perfect for them, and it's a great job now for whoever gets it, so it looks like there's probably a ready-made successor on the spot. Now, let's move on. I'm delighted to say that we have bronze medalist Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe on the line this morning. Good morning to you, Arthur. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it was good. Really happy.
Yeah, so
it's back yesterday.
I think most people kind of first became aware of you in the Olympic Games, and that was an amazing come-from-behind performance as well on the last day to really cement yourself as among the top tier of modern pentathletes in the world. And it was a pretty much come-from-behind at the weekend as well.
Well, luckily at the weekend I had a better fence than I had at the Olympics. So I was in third position going into the combined, but I had a bad shoot on one of the last ones, and I had to. Basically, I was down in fourth and quite a long way away from third, and I had to kind of really find something from somewhere to get the bronze. So it wasn't quite as far behind as the Olympics, but yeah, it was still. I had a lot to do on the last lap, so I'm really happy to come away with the medal.
Okay, I understand you're also with another world-class pentathlete in the car this morning. Hey, Natalia, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, pretty good. You finished fourth at the weekend.
I know, so close to a medal. Arthur just stole that one off me, but it's okay.
So are you happy enough celebrating afterwards, or is it like, God damn it?
It's like a bittersweet, because I'm so delighted that I actually came fourth, because it was basically like a world champs, and that's amazing. I've kind of moved up the ranks, but you're so close to a medal as well, so that's slightly bittersweet as well.
At least you've got one in the car to inspire you next time, so that you're the one with the medal at least, or maybe both of you get medals the next time.
Yeah, hopefully. He seems to have beaten me both times we've won medals the last while, so I think it's my turn at this stage.
You guys are going to compete together at some point soon, is that right?
We're not really sure. Maybe at Europeans, but we're not really sure, because we're kind of just we focused on the relay last year because we thought it might be in the Olympics, and then we were ranked world number one. We won kind of most of the stuff that we did, but this year we know it's not going to be in the Olympics, so we really focused on the individual, which seems to be paying off. Okay,
so what is the schedule then for the rest of the season, and how long is the season?
We're both going to Europeans in 3 weeks' time, and that's on in Hungary, and that's our last kind of one of the season. So we've got Europeans there, so hopefully we can end on a good one, on a good high. Yeah, and then a bit of time off before obviously everything kind of begins to ramp up again. Yeah, a bit of time off then, a bit of a rest, and then ramp up, because next year is the Olympic qualifiers, so it's one of the most important years. All right, Natalia, I know you've got to go. If you could stick us back on to Arthur there, Arthur, we might get a bit more detail on where exactly this level of performance is coming from, and how confident you were heading into the weekend, because you obviously had medalled and won recently enough at a World Cup event as well, so obviously you're just in kind of the form of your life at the minute. Yeah, to be honest, if we kind of go back a couple of months ago, my first World Cup this year in LA was really poor, and my physicals, basically I think I did a bit overtrain myself, and my bloods and everything were all over the place, and I was talking with my team at the Institute of Sport of the possibility of pulling the season. And luckily I just kind of came back to form just in time. I think there was one pivotal running session where they were going to test to see whether it was the season is going to be called off or whether it was okay, and the running session went well, and ever since then the season has just gone from being a write-off to being, I don't know, the best season I've ever had by far. So it's crazy, the margins in sport between complete disaster and unbelievable success. So yeah, I'm really, really happy.
And why did that happen, Arthur? Was that like a miscalculation? Was it just kind of a mental rust that you were in? Why did this sea change happen so quickly?
To be honest, sometimes it's hard to know exactly why. In LA, I felt like I was in unbelievable shape. I might have gotten a little bit too lean, and kind of thought, in order to be performing really well, I'd need to be, really ripped, and kind of all that kind of stuff mattered more than it did. And then when I got to the final in LA, I just had nothing. I dived into the pool and I just had no energy. And then when we went home, usually my bloods are really good. We got tested, and a lot of my levels were kind of all over the place, and that could be attributed to a lot of different reasons, stress, or just generally you play, like, it's fine margins between doing everything you can do and then doing everything you can do plus one session a week or something, and that builds up. So yeah, it's a good learning curve for me. So basically, ever since that World Cup, I've literally just taken one swimming session away per week, and I've felt way better, and eaten a little bit more food, gotten a little bit fatter, but I'm much happier. So it's turned out really well. So yeah, good learning curve for me.
That's mad. Like, it's really mad when you think about it. The whole season rests on this one training session, and here you are now having if you stop to think about it, you go a bit crazy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it was a weird one, and at the time I was, I kind of rationalized in my head, and I was thinking, if you run in this session and you're flat again, this is the only way forward. You're going to have to just stop. But I had my physiologist there, I had my running coach, I had my PD, and I had my nutritionist at the running session. They're all there kind of crossing their fingers, and luckily it went well. So yeah, and ever since then the season's just gone from strength to strength. I think at the moment my world ranking's gone up to number 3 in the world, just behind the 2 Korean boys that beat me. So it's been a dream come true, really. It's crazy how things can change so fast.
How good are the 2 Koreans? Because I saw you speaking after your bronze medal win at the weekend, talking about the 2 Koreans and trying to catch up with them in the last event of the modern pentathlon there in Kazakhstan. Like, are they somebody that you've been competing with for a while? Are they new on the scene? Are they going to be around for Tokyo, I guess, is the key question.
Yeah, no, these guys have been around for a good while. Both of these guys were in Tokyo. I would say the guy who won had a phenomenal fence that day, and he provided he was going to ride that way, he was always going to win. But the real danger is the guy who came second. He was actually the guy who was behind me in the last World Cup. On our days, we're both very similar. Our kind of swimming, running, shooting, and fencing are very similar. But he's like a little robot. He doesn't really miss targets and stuff. So if you make a small mistake, he's ready to capitalize on you. So yeah, they're absolutely incredible athletes, and at the moment they have 400 full-time modern pentathletes in one university training. So they have a conveyor belt of them coming through, and it's really starting to show now. So yeah, they're incredible athletes, but they're definitely not unbeatable. If you have a very good day and things go your way, they're definitely not impossible to beat. But they are very, very, very strong.
And are you thinking about them at all in terms of how you're structuring your training? Are you focusing a little bit more on the fencing element of things now because they're so good at it?
Absolutely. So in my big problem in Rio was my fencing didn't go my way. So usually my running and my swimming are very strong. So this year I've done a lot of work with a fencing coach over in GB, and my fencing performances have been a lot higher. And maybe I put less emphasis on some of the other events, and it's basically meant the performances are much better. So yeah, the key for me is to get a relatively good fence, and if I do that, then I know I'm in a shot of a medal most of the time. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of work on my fencing.
How do you concertina the time? Like, do you have certain blocks where you focus to make sure that it's kind of like a pre-season, you've got your running down, you've got your shooting down, you've got your fencing down, or do you have to do a little, you obviously have to do a little bit all the time of everything?
Yeah, there's a kind of a rule where you keep touch with everything, so you don't fully drop anything. But in the winter would be more running and swimming focused. Yeah, you do a lot of, basically you have to be a very good runner and swimmer anyway. And the fencing is kind of the icing on the cake. So the winter would be spent doing a lot of endurance work, a lot of hard training. And then when you get closer to the summer, you keep touch with all that. You add a bit of speed, and then you start really honing down the technicals, because they're the ones that for one that the Koreans are really good at. but that's the kind of icing on the cake. Whereas you can't just suddenly decide to focus on becoming fit. You have to have done months and months and months of training for that. So yeah, basically the winter you focus a lot on the physicals, and the summer in between the competitions you're trying to hone down that shoot, perfect the fencing routine, and at the same time just keep touch and stay fit. You don't try to get even more fit in this stage. But yeah, it seems to be working really well, but it's a real trial and error, and we've been doing it for the last few years, and I think we've found the perfect mix going forward now to Tokyo. So it's really good.
Because it must be very unique as well for any multi-event discipline, really, to know that you're such a good swimmer and such a good runner, because unless you're a top-class swimmer or runner, you will never be able to compete in modern pentathlon. And then I'd imagine there is at least one of the other disciplines that you wouldn't be an expert at, even close to 18, 19 years old. So, you're 26 years old, I think, at the moment, Arthur. I presume the incremental gains you're making are still quite significant in a couple of disciplines, which is unique to the multidiscipline sports, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I love about pentathlon is there's so much to work on. You never finish the competition and go, I had the perfect day. I couldn't have done any better. That just does not exist. I think I've finished and crossed the line maybe one or two times in my whole career where I've been pretty damn satisfied with every event. So it's kind of addictive. You always have something that you can work on. You always have something that you can improve on. And that's the really exciting thing, because I still feel like I'm performing really well this year, and Natalia's performing really well this year, but we have still huge steps to take, and we've identified those areas now as well. So if we can, keep improving in the way we're doing at the moment, come Tokyo, we're going to be very difficult to beat. Sorry. That's really cool.
Did I read somewhere that you sleep for 14 hours a night, or is that just that particular element of the year?
That was true. That was before Rio, when I was using an altitude tent, and in order to get the benefit from an altitude tent, so to get the adaptations of the red blood cells in your body, you have to spend a very large amount of the time in the tent. Okay. So basically for 3 weeks I would have to spend up to 16 hours in it. So basically I'd slept a lot as well. Now, I would be a little bit less stringent on those rules now on myself, but I would always try to get between 9-10 hours a day, and then if it's a really hard training day, I'll chuck in a nap or two as well, because otherwise it's just very difficult to keep going,
We spoke about the endurance and the technical aspects of this, but presumably most of this is mental as well, because you guys, the strength and conditioning stuff, there's not a huge amount of advantage that one program is going to have over another. Technically, obviously, there's loads of room to get better, but how do you train your brain to switch between swimming and shooting and fencing?
That is the hardest part of pentathlon to master. If you look at the start list on the day, all the guys who make finals, all the women who make finals, they're phenomenal athletes. They're really good runners. They're really good swimmers. And on paper, it's very difficult to kind of separate who's going to win. But for some reason, there's always a trend, and the same people you see on the podium time and time again. And that is one of the reasons why the Koreans are actually so strong, is they're mentally phenomenal. And so I've been doing a lot of work actually with a psychologist this year, Kate Kirby, and we've been doing mental routines for my fencing. So I don't think I've gotten technically much better in fencing, but I'm much more robust in my routine. And it means that, say, if I lose a few hits in the middle of the fence, I don't throw the trolley out and suddenly just lose and go on a losing spree. I'm now much more consistent when I lose some, and I have a system where I can stay on track with my performances. What we've done this year is it's very, very random. So she figured this out, but I embody an animal. I have 4 different animals that I use during my fencing. At the start, when I'm nervous, I become a peacock. So I have to basically strut around the place like a peacock, so that I have the confidence to attack someone and not afraid of losing. I then become a hitman. So I basically start speaking in a Russian accent and a hitman. So basically I just go and attack them with no fear at all. It's quite funny. And then on the third quarter, I become a shark. So I lure my prey in at the last minute, attack them, and in the last 8 fights I become a lion. So it's just raw aggression, get the caffeine into you, just try to kill them basically. And it's really weird, like that sounds crazy, but for some reason this year it's been working so well. So I'm gonna keep doing it. Yeah, it's really weird.
That's class. That's brilliant. One last thing struck me: the ability to perform the way you did at the end of the Olympics in Rio is really going to set you up, because you totally understand that it's okay to have a setback and come back, and you can still perform at a world-class level. How much confidence did you take from the fact that things didn't go your way for a while in Rio, but you did roar back into the competition like a lion?
Yeah, like I'm not gonna lie. I actually was very disappointed with my Rio performance. Not in in some of the disciplines they were very good, but just the fencing I was very disappointed. I was so sure going to the Olympics that I was going to medal, and so 8th place at the time. Look, I was very happy when I crossed the line, because I'd come from being in 29th to making it back to 8th. But coming back a few months later, I was quite disappointed. But I knew that on a different day, had I had a better mental approach in the fencing, had things gone slightly differently, I was in the shape to win a medal, and so you can take confidence from that. But yeah, like I'm fully confident that if things, fingers crossed, go okay in Tokyo, I'm definitely in with a shot of a medal, and I'm going to do everything I can to get there, and I 100% believe that I can do that. So yeah, confidence is good at the moment, and these last few results is only kind of backing that up, really. So it's really cool. So
one more event this season, and then a bit of downtime to prepare for next season, and then next year is qualification for the Olympics, and then the year after is the Olympics.
Spot on, yeah. So you have European champs in July, and that'll be the last competition of the season. And then next year we're looking into Olympic qualification, which should be good, and then Tokyo. So yeah, look, it's all very exciting, and it's all going very well. Fingers crossed. But yeah, it's great.
There's a hell of a lot of travelling obviously involved, in a hell of a lot of airports. My one last question is, how the hell do you get the guns and the swords through airport security?
Oh, okay. Hopefully no airlines are listening. But basically, I've become a master at taking apart a gun. So I'll hide parts of the gun in my shoe. I'll kind of put some in my fencing mask. I'll basically make it not look like a gun anymore. Now, unfortunately, it isn't actually a gun. It only shoots a laser. It doesn't shoot ammunition or anything. So it just looks like one. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for that. And the swords from fencing are a little bit easier to get through, because they only have like a button at the top. So most airlines don't really mind, but every once in a while, it can cause you trouble. But yeah, look, it's like pentathlon. It takes experience to learn how to sneak guns and swords into different countries. But after a while, you can master it. So I won't give away any more of my secrets, just in case that bites me in the ass in the future.
It sounds like it's not that much of a leap for you to pretend to be a Russian hitman whatsoever. It's like, I've already got this. I'm already playing most of this role.
Yeah. I think I could have a good career as a hitman.
Well, listen, best of luck. Congratulations on your success, and indeed on Natalia's as well. It's great stuff, and everybody's cheering you on. Thanks a million, Arthur.
Thanks very much for having me. Cheers, guys.
That's Arthur Lanigan O'Keefe there, fresh from his bronze medal, and already gold medal as well this season. So not a bad season, and that is one power couple.
Yeah, it's another sport you wish was available live to everybody, unless there is Modern Pentathlon TV online or something that I'm not aware of, because it is a great spectator sport. It's one of those. It looks
crazy. That last race where it's all staggered is it's sensational.
It's like the one every 4 years thing where you're like, I wish I could follow this thing for more than just the Olympics.
Yeah, well, we'll try and keep a much closer eye on how they're getting on over the next while as well, because both real live medal prospects for the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Now, one last thing for you before we get to Jim McGuinness, who I sat down with yesterday for 20 minutes. Always pretty interesting, because clearly somebody who's still thinking very deeply about the game, and obviously the news broke yesterday that Paddy McBrearty is out from a Donegal perspective, so we'll get his take on that. But before we do, the other big news is that Felipe Contepomi is heading back to Dublin to rejoin Leinster as part of their backroom team. He's a replacement for Gervin Dempsey. Joe caught up with him yesterday, and here is Felipe talking about the various conversations that he had with Leo Cullen, Stuart Lancaster and Johnny Sexton.
I think obviously there were 3 different conversations. I think I know Leo from previous years, from when we were players and so on. So it was a different conversation. I think it was more of the desire with him, and also he more so he explained what's going on Leinster and things that maybe have changed from the days I was there as a player and so on. And with Stuart, whom I've never worked with, but I know him from his reputation. I think he was more interested in my philosophy of rugby and some other more strategic and some other things. And with Johnny, obviously, I know him well and kept in touch. So it was more on a catch-up base and also told me what was going on and how has been this last successful year. And so it was different conversations, but all of them in obviously focusing on the Leinster way and where's the club going and where's the team going.
Yeah, Leinster supporters pretty happy about that. A couple of comments to bring you through from the various comments that we've had across the day so far. Yesterday's France-Denmark game was an abomination to all sports. The first 0-0 draw of the World Cup.
It was disgusting. I was offended watching it. It was, except for that Fakir potential wonder goal that hit the side netting and said there was nothing to report. It was terrible, it was offensive, it was disgusting, and everybody should be ashamed of their involvement in that.
I think John's being harsh on France. They were basically already through and rested a load of players who are now fresh for Saturday.
I think his point is more to do with momentum, because momentum is so important, and I think Gareth Southgate can look at that France performance last night and think to himself,
momentum's not a real thing.
Well, it kind of is.
No,
it kind of is.
It's not real.
It is real.
The stats community says momentum is bollocks.
Who says it's
the stats community says momentum is bollocks.
Well, maybe I'm saying that the stats community are full of shit themselves.
Well, there you go. Momentum's not real.
Well, it's not. It's not.
It doesn't start from game to game.
It's kind of like confidence. It is just because you can't measure it with your fancy thermometer thing, a stats man, doesn't mean it's not a real thing.
Thermometer thing.
And whatever your stats people, the GPS system.
Kieran Cunningham says the Messi goal, the first touch on his thigh, one of the greatest I've ever seen. I don't know how it's possible. It's true. This is definitely going to become one of those like, ooh, that is definitely right up there with any World Cup goal ever. They kind of need to go a bit further in the tournament though, don't they? Bergkamp, Tommy's saying the Bergkamp Argentina goal.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
The Bergkamp goal's better.
Of course it is.
The Bergkamp goal is better.
This Messi goal isn't the best goal of this World Cup. It's not. It's a fantastic goal, but it's not the best goal of this World Cup.
What's the best goal? What's better?
Well, a multitude of free kicks. Kroos, Kolarov.
Free kicks like a controlled environment. Set piece.
Well,
because everybody gets the chance to set.
Lionel Messi in a one-on-one with the ball coming over his shoulder is
not a set piece.
Is as set an environment
with like a prowling defender ready to throw himself at you, and the whole world saying you're a chump, you're finished, you're washed up, you're not the GOAT. You got a picture with the GOAT. Why did you get a picture with the GOAT? Leo, what's this you and the GOAT thing?
There is an argument.
That's your GOAT.
There is an argument to be made that it is the goal of the tournament.
Rojo's better. No, nonsense, says Tommy. Nonsense.
He said Rojo's is better?
He said it.
No, that's
and then he backed down and said that was nonsense himself.
that was a quick turnaround.
Messi's goal, at first glance, you'd almost swear he caught the ball and dropped it at his feet. It's just mind-boggling, says David Corrigan. I agree with that. His second touch to set up the shot and move the ball away from the defender, I feel, is even better. I mean, we are nitpicking between an amazing first touch and an even second touch.
It's true, there is 3 components to this.
Give me better goals. Give me a better non-free kick goal. So I'm not having free kicks.
Denis Cheryshev in the first game for Russia. Ricardo Quaresma. I'm just trying to talk my way through some of the good goals that we've seen.
Nachos
is better than Messi's.
I don't remember Nachos now off the top of my head.
The one that collides off the post that puts Spain 3-2 up against Portugal, the kind of half volley.
Messi's level of execution of difficulty, stuff you haven't seen before. Have you seen a ball die on a thigh and bounce perfectly onto the foot that doesn't break stride, that puts it to just the one spot where his right foot, which isn't really any useful except for standing on, can actually score.
That's because there's a multiple level of components here. That's why it's unique.
And what's why much more...
Just because it's unique doesn't mean it's better.
The potential outcomes multiply by millions. The ability to do that is like...
Is that one of your stats friends telling you that?
Yeah.
Millions for each touch, it gets a million times more difficult. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, you're talking shit. That's not true. That is not true. Once he makes the first touch with the thigh, which is an amazing touch...
The second touch is just as good.
It makes it a hell of a lot easier. Of course, that first touch is really, really hard to make. But everything is made easier because of the level of excellence from the previous step. It doesn't get harder. It doesn't get a million times harder the next step of the goal.
Okay. We're going to play this to Kevin Kilbane, who has played football, and he'll go, yeah, you can do the first touch, but then to add the second touch, it's a multiple. It's a force multiplier. Chances of doing first touch multiplied by chance of doing second touch.
But the first touch is so good that the rest of it is made easier. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's made easier. And I'm not saying it's a bad goal.
If David Clifford did
that, fantastic goal. I'm saying it's an unbelievable goal, but it's not the goal of the tournament.
If David Clifford does something similar this year, you'll be like, that's the greatest goal of all time, and I'm not hearing any arguments about it.
Of course. Literally, the ball came over David Clifford's shoulder and he decided not to catch it and decided to let it bang off his thigh and, on the half volley, slam it into the back of the net in a World Cup match. Then
Owen Burke and Fia Rua says, up the Lilies, leading the rebellion, #OTBAM. They are kind of leading the rebellion, but they've just got to, get back out there. The county board has been a bit quiet in all this. They've kind of gone to ground a little bit. Not a county board renowned for their forward thinking. So just don't take the soup.
Is there a conflict of interest if they do kind of support their team because they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them?
But ultimately, this is really a chance for all the counties to decide: do they stand together, and do they want a fair championship, or do they want a championship that's dictated to them where rules are kind of arbitrary?
It will take, and I'm trying to kind of get into the thinking of this, that why we haven't heard much of the county board on radio, why we haven't heard them do interviews. We just got one statement. That's my thinking on why that is.
They did probably put their most impressive communicator up, and he spoke, and hopefully that's the end of that from their perspective. They would think, I hope, as opposed to their trying to weasel out of it. We'll see today what wins through integrity and standing one's ground, or money, sky and a strong-willed establishment where they are the bosses and are going to let all know that, says Catherine Clark. I don't think Sky have anything to do with this. No. They really don't. It makes no sense. If I was a TV company, I would want the game in Newbridge where there is a chance of an upset, where the atmosphere is going to be really good. If the game is in Croke Park, the atmosphere will more than likely be shit because there won't be enough people to make the ground seem full. And it'll be grand, and it'll be a 5-6 point win for Mayo, and everybody goes, well, okay, Mayo one step closer to the Super 8s. Now let's see what hot ball they get. Will it be one of those counties that they more than likely are going to beat in the next game? I don't know.
But there's no need for hot balls anymore. But yeah, you're right. It
makes no sense.
It makes zero sense. The venues is what makes the championship special when you've got such a varying degree of level in the teams.
If Roscommon make the Super 8s, they'll get home advantage. Will Donegal get home advantage? Will Leitrim get home advantage if they make the Super 8s? To hear teams might lose advantage is crazy, says Shane Morrison. Robert Jacobs says Dublin have had significant advantages for over a decade, most only realising now. #elitism, #Dublin Games Development, #Bertie. I love that one. Dubs love travelling away. The best cracker Dublin away days. They do. That's the whole point. Dubs would love to play in Clonus. Well, let's start the Dublin to Clonus movement.
And so would the players. It's not just the fans who would love a day out. It is the players who would love to play in Clonus. I mean, like if you're an inter-county player, there's a couple of places you want to play. You want to play in Croke Park. You want to play in Clonus. You might want to play in Killarney. You want to play in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. You want to play in the Gaelic grounds. You want to play in Semple Stadium. You want to play in as many of the big stadiums around Ireland as possible. It's going on a journey like John Duggan going from Moscow to Nizhny Novgorod to Kazan. You want to try out different places. Being stuck in Croke Park all the time is boring.
Yeah, and then there was a big mad conversation about people being pissed off about the season tickets. You're not guaranteed a season ticket if capacity is insufficient. It's not an unusual game. That argument happened on our Twitter feed. You can go and check it out if you want. Lots of fellas crying out for fairness all of a sudden when games have been shifted for years and county boards have voted to move games for finance. Now because Kildare think they have a chance against Mayo and Newbridge, it's a matter of sporting integrity. Well, that's the whole point. You get to pick your home games. So when Kildare were playing Limerick, it was like, yeah, we'll move that because loads of people want to go and see it. When Kildare playing Mayo, it's like, well, we want to try and win the game. Like,
it's at your discretion.
Yes. That's the whole point of having a home game. I get to move it when I want to.
And you know what? Exactly, that is the whole point. It's not about, say, like the FA Cup semi-finals when the FA are like, this game is going to be in Wembley. It doesn't matter who gets thrown out first. It's like, fair enough. At least we're told that from the outset. Whereas from this, it is round 3 of the qualifiers where there's a home-away arrangement where the first team drawn out gets a home game, and that's not happening.
Joe O'Shea, how you doing, Joe? Looking great on the telly last night with all the rich lads. Why do we never hear from late medieval pentathletes? It's bias. Lots of bias this week, Joe. Fair point, and we'll try and address that as soon as we possibly can.
They'd be very good at the old fencing.
They would. Not so good at the laser targeted shooting.
No, they'd bring out a bow and arrow and be told you gotta go back home with that thing.
Yeah, or a crossbow. Okay, so Now TV is the streaming service that you can access Sky Sports with. You can get a day pass, you can get a week pass, or you can get a month-long pass, and you can get all those details on the Now TV website. They had an event yesterday where Jim McGuinness was available to the media, and I got the opportunity to sit down with him and talk about quite a wide range of things. That's pretty much all we've got time for today. We'll play out now with this whole Jim McGuinness thing, but if you missed it, it's worth paying attention to. Wide-ranging conversations about forwards, about the preeminence of attacking sides at the moment, about that ebb and flow of styles, and about how maybe Carlow are actually one of the stories of the summer. Jim, we've got to start with the worst news that Donegal have had is the terrible situation where Paddy McBrearty's ACL has blown out, and you just feel for him because it felt like he was cresting to a peak in his career where he kind of fully was realising all of his own potential. It's a devastating blow really for Donegal and for him particularly.
It is indeed. It's one of those ones, I suppose, when you work with a player and you know them and you see them coming up from a very young age, it's almost like your children, and when they've got problems or something happens, it's just you take it so much to heart. And I think everybody in Donegal will be devastated with this news. Patrick obviously at the top of that list, and his family, and then the squad. He's just been exceptional for the county this year, and has blossomed into the player that everybody was hoping that he was going to be. He was always an exceptional player, but now he has become a leader within the team and has been able to step up and crunch moments and crunch games and show the way for Donegal. And so it's just one of those ones where it's hard to put into words, to be honest with you. He's at that age now, 24, 25 years of age. He's got the world at his feet, and it's a major setback for everybody. Because he's not just a forward, really. He's kind of obviously key to that game plan, and you could see where they were working situations where he would have been the specific person that they were using the chess pieces to break free. So it has a knock-on impact all over the field for them. Absolutely, and hand him the ball and critical areas of the field, and he was just like instinctively just pulling the trigger, and the ball was going over the bar consistently all season. And as I said earlier, for me as well, the leadership qualities that were starting to really shine. At a relatively young age, obviously he's been with us now for a long time, but at 24 years of age, you'd expect that maybe somebody's from a 27, 28 year old. Yeah. And so it's devastating for everybody, and Donegal will now just somehow or other have to try and find a way to get everybody together again ahead of Dublin. It's a real shame because it felt like Donegal were right there as like that chasing pack of contenders. Everybody still has Dublin ahead of all the other teams on the basis of what they've done over the last 6 seasons really, but Donegal were right there, and they were they look like they had the right game as well to take on Dublin. No, I totally agree. I mean, going forward, they've been exceptional. Obviously, Fermanagh went in with a game plan, and once Donegal broke the resistance in terms of that, they just opened up, and that free-flowing football going forward. And as you say, put Patrick central to that going forward, and just the way they're moving the ball, the pace and the intelligence behind the attacks. It is a big blow. There's no doubt about that. But what I would say is, as well, is they are Ulster champions, and that is a big thing, and it's a self-validation for a lot of the younger guys that haven't been there before. I was speaking to a lot of the senior players yesterday with a good drink in them from Donegal town. They decided let's make a few phone calls to Jim, and a lot of them were saying to me that it felt like the first one. And I thought that was brilliant, because it's been 4 years, 4 hard years, and final losses in between. And so it was just, it's great to get over the line and to be back in the winners' enclosure. And, if they can find a way to somehow come to peace with this, and I think Patrick will be central to that as well. How Patrick reacts to this will be important for the squad. Then they have built up a huge head of steam over the last number of months, and please God now they can bring that into the Dublin game.
I compared Michael Murphy to LeBron James recently on the show, and I got a bit of grief for it from a few of the Kerry people who work with us. But I was making the point that he's legitimately the best footballer in the country. It's just that he had to be the best midfielder and the best full forward at the same time. So if he only played in one position, everybody would go, this guy is as good as anybody out there. There's nobody better than him. So he has to be two people and be a bit split.
Well, that's the first thing that came into my mind whenever I heard the news about Patrick, because obviously we were finding sort of the balance between, Jamie Brennan was supplementing Patrick, Kieran Thompson would come in, and Oren Morelos coming back in, and all of a sudden you had Leo coming from midfield, so all of a sudden you had a lot of attacking options that were supporting Patrick in the offensive part of the pitch, and then Michael was able to be a general in the middle of the park, and David Moore, and obviously you can see where the Kerry people are come from. David Moore is an exceptional midfielder that has everything, if you like, but Michael is he's the glue that's keeping a lot of the parts together, and for me what he brought to the table on Sunday was just his class, obviously, but also his leadership and composure, and just knowing when to go, knowing when to stay, taking the full back out of position, and the ability to get around the defence as a result of that. So there's so much to him, and he brings so much to the table. Now the question will be asked, obviously, will he have to be supplemented, between the full forward line and the middle of the field a wee bit more in the coming weeks?
A big challenge for Declan Butter. Before I leave Donegal, I do want to make one final point and ask you about the situation where they're through now as Ulster champions and they've got to face Dublin in Croke Park, but this is going to be the group where Dublin have two home games in Croker. I mean, obviously everybody pretends that Dublin don't play their home games in Croker, but the truth is they do play their home games in Croker. Is this fair?
No, I don't think it is fair, and I think I think it's a great opportunity for the GAA to say, a lot of these things, a lot of the problems and a lot of the issues that were raised over the last number of years was because Dublin had an unfair advantage, if you like, and this is an opportunity now where if they say that Dublin play their home game and their neutral game in Croke Park, I mean, we were the last team to beat them in 2014 in the championship, so are we seriously trying to suggest that they're going to get beaten twice in the space of a couple of weeks in Croke Park? So it's almost inevitable that Dublin will progress from this group if they're given two home games in Croke Park, and I think the right thing to do would be to play the game in Donegal, to play the game in Dublin, and you've got the neutral venue, a Breffni Park, a Clonus. Can you imagine 40,000 people in Clonus for Donegal against Dublin, and what that would bring, to the whole country? It would be a real spectacle, and Jim Gavin has done an incredible job with Dublin, and sometimes they don't get the credit they deserve because people will say they have the money behind them, they have the juggernaut, they have the population base and all, and I think for them to go to Clonus or Breffni or somewhere like that and play in the Lion's Den, if you like, in Ulster, and maybe come out the other side of that and show their absolute true colours in terms of the champions that they are, I think that would be good for Dublin, for Dublin's legacy, and good for football.
And good for that sense that everybody is involved in the same competition, that it's not already slightly rigged in favour of one team by virtue of the fact that the stadium they play in is in the city that they play out of.
Absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer in many respects, but let's see what happens.
The one final point on that is that this isn't necessarily a criticism of the GAA. They put the fixtures up, and now that you're here you go, okay, well that doesn't make any sense, we can change that, as opposed to no, last year we wrote those fixtures down and we have to stick to them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and the bottom line is, there is the opportunity to do the right thing here, and I don't think Dublin would have mind. I'm being honest in that. I don't think Dublin would mind. I think they would embrace the challenge, and so protocol is protocol, but at the end of the day, if it's the right thing to do, then that's what should happen.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the attacking flair that we've seen across the course of the championship, and a lot of it has been Donegal, Kerry similarly, and okay, so the opponents that Kerry have faced haven't been great. But at the same time, they're definitely committed to a particular brand of football. Donegal are committed to a particular brand of football. Mayo are starting to rack up big scores as well. So has the pendulum swung away from the teams who have decided we're going to defend and learn how to defend? Are we beginning to see a more expressive type of Gaelic football?
I think so. I think you could be right, and I think that obviously every team has to cut their own cloth. Like Fermanagh went in with a game plan on Sunday, got a lot of criticism, my understanding is, for that. But the bottom line is, you've got 16 senior teams in Fermanagh, and had they gone in with any other game plan, the scoreline probably would have been more. Now, the purists will say, well, the scoreline was significant anyway. So these are the debates that will go on. The defensive system probably that we put in place and that was successful was underpinned with a huge amount of intensity and a huge amount on the transition, and I think the good teams in the country know that and understand that. And if you look at how quickly Dublin and Kerry and Donegal in particular go from one end of the field, from a defensive position to an offensive position, that's clear for everybody. And so there's principles there that can be adapted by every team, but you need good players, and Donegal now have a nice crop of young lads coming to supplement what they have. Kerry, obviously, it's well documented in terms of the underage success, and they're playing a certain brand. I played in Kerry myself, and it's as natural to kick the ball in Kerry as it is to fist the ball, and that's just because that's the way they play their football. Donegal, it's more natural for them to fist their ball in club football, but that's just the way they play their football, and so you can't be hyper critical of that. These are habits of a lifetime, if you like, and Dublin have their style and they've got their brand, and Jim Gavin, you'd have to say as well, has put his fingerprint on an existing brand. And so this is now we're not talking about football, we're talking about philosophy.
Yeah, well, that's it. So why do you think there's such a disconnect between the analysis of the teams and the fact that, like, it seems that a lot of the analysis is a moral judgment on a team's decision to play a particular style, as opposed to a here's why, here's how, in certain cases, in the one that gets the most debate and discussion about it. I don't understand why that is.
Well, I think if you go back and you look, say, the teams that have been successful with this system, it's lesser teams. So all of a sudden, then you've got all the lesser teams in the country going, well, maybe is there a chance that we could have a bit of that pie? Yeah. And I think when you're on the outside all the time and you're playing inter-county football for 10 years or 11 years or 12 years, and you don't even get that day in the sun ever, that's tough. And you're training as hard as anybody else is training in the country. And so if you're not creative in terms of what you bring to the table, and I made the point today in the article in the Times about Leash and the goalkeeper, and people were looking at it and they were going like, what the heck is he doing? But the reality was, they were pushing up very, very aggressively. It was always going to be a +1 with the goalkeeper, and so theoretically they should be able to get around the press. And if you don't have the capacity to match up 15v15 because they just have better players and better, and incredible athletes into the bargain, if you haven't got that capacity, then you have to think about the game laterally, and you have to think about the game how other ways to win the match. And that's what has happened in the last sort of 10 years. People are going, is there a way we can win? And so I get that, and I understand that, because everybody wants to be there and be successful.
And that's why Carlow should have been celebrated as one of the stories of the summer. It's like they've taken their available resources and they've overachieved, which is really all any of us is trying to do in any walk of life.
Correct. And there is only so many Kerrys and Dublins and and these teams in any sport, and it's the same dynamic as well. If you look at other sport, it is the same dynamic at play, and so I think sometimes the criticism it can be over the top and it can be unbalanced sometimes, and everybody wants to see open football and high scoring football, and that is the reality. But when you're in a dressing room and you know that this is it and you're only going to get one chance at it, like ironically enough, the World Cup is happening now, and you see in these World Cup games there's more of an edge. Iran played last night, they're playing Portugal, and a lot of the stuff that's going on, that this is in or out, it's cut or thrust, and the players also know that this is their World Cup. In 4 years' time, the squad probably will have moved on. If you're an exceptional player, you might be part of the next one, but the high possibility you won't. So this is your one chance, and that's why you see these players doing things that they normally wouldn't do in 38 league games over the course of a season.
That's where the madness comes from.
Exactly, and that's where the GAA sort of at its heart, that's where a lot of this stuff comes from. It's in the melting pot. It's cut or thrust, and it brings that out in players.
It's really quick in the Super 8s, but will the fact that there is another that you've got to manage your squad over those 3 games. Will that have a minor impact on how mad some of these games get?
No, I absolutely think that. I think that, we were talking about Patrick earlier and the impact of an injury, and if you've got 1 or 2 injuries and you've got, again, you're one of the smaller squads and you don't have the luxury of 30 players and there's nothing between them. If you've got 15 players and then by the time you get to the player 17, 18 and 19, and it's creating a lot of apprehension in your mind when you're sitting at home thinking about the team that you're going to pick. The intensity of the games and how quickly the games come up, I think will have an impact on the championship. And also, can I just say on that as well, also I was looking at Dublin and their conditioning the last day, and I was looking at Kerry as well, and they looked, them 2 teams in particular, and Donegal, they all look as if they have got their timing right in terms of being there probably 4 weeks earlier than they would be every other season, in terms of that they look really sharp, really fit, really strong, really aggressive, and so they've done a good job in the periodisation.
The one other thing that I wanted to ask you about was kickouts and why so many teams are quite passive on the opposition kickouts, and even Laois seem to be quite passive at the weekend. Why do teams sometimes decide that they're not going to attack a strength of a superpower? What are they afraid of?
They're afraid of the top quality goalkeepers on the opposition that can really, really hurt you. We spoke about Dublin there. If I'm going in to play Dublin in the morning, the first thing I'm going to think about is Stephen Cluxton. That is the very first thing. Now, that is an unusual dynamic. Normally it's the best player and the best full forward, but the first person you're going to think about is Stephen Cluxton. Now, you've got a question right away. How are you going to approach this? And if you do push up, and people will say, you've just asked me the question, why would they not just push up? The reality is you push 6 forwards on, maybe they drop a midfielder, and that's another one, and it creates this dynamic then that it's basically 1v1 in the middle of the park, and if he's good enough and to go over the press and that ball's won and you get a runner off that, it's a straight running goal. And the goals that have been conceded in the championship at the minute are coming off kickouts across all the games, and so you have a moral dilemma. Now, the other side of that coin is if you say we're just going to concede the kick out to Dublin, it's a never ending story of possession, and over the course of 70 minutes, which is now 80 minutes, with the extra time that's been added on, that's very difficult, also. And so it creates this situation. The teams that are dropping off are normally big underdogs, and they're dropping off and they're saying, okay, listen, we're not going to take you on in the kick out, but we'll take you on by virtue of the fact that you've got to beat 15 of us to get to goal. And it becomes very attritional. So you're sort of damned if you do, you're damned if you don't in terms of your approach. We beat Dublin in 2014. We took them on the kick out. That was very high risk. That was very, very high risk because of the quality that he brought to the thing. They go short, they go medium, they go long on the diagonal, one ball, and it's in the back of the net.
If you think back to the Tyrone game last year, Cluxton's first kick out went over the press onto one of his players, and suddenly this game's over.
This game's over. And that's how quickly
first kick out.
Exactly. And for an underdog and then against the top teams, ultimately what you're hoping to do is get into the dressing room at half time, couple of points up, couple of points down, but still being in the game. And in fairness to Laois, it was a game in the first half last Sunday.
It looked like Dublin were a bit human in the first half in that game, and it looked like they were missing goal chances in the first game as well against Longford, but then they just started to clip points over in the second half, and you realise that maybe that was their early season wobble. And
I'd agree that to a certain extent, but I just think Laois asked a few questions off them. I think they caught them on the hop slightly in terms of going long. The quality of when they went long and the quality ball on the diagonal was something that had to deal with. It presented a few questions. Dublin got in at half time, they solved that problem. They had their players in position dropping back very quickly when the ball was in the air, and they kept picking up the breaks in the second half, and all of a sudden, tactically the game was done, and then they just started moving through the gears again then. And so you have to give Dublin credit as well. They solved the problem quickly, and then they were back where they needed to be.
Is that a template for other teams to look at? That's the bit that Laois got right?
Well, Dublin do give you chances to score against them, and if you look at the way teams have been successful against them, we look at Kerry in the league final a couple of years ago as well. They give you a chance to kick the ball, and if you're good enough to run at them, then you can get joy as well. And what I mean by that is you have to be good enough individually to beat your man individually for pace, or tactically running the ball with 2 and 3 and 4 players, and so the guy on the ball is the guy in control of the attack, and when he's closed down, then is there somebody quickly that you can release the ball to, who can carry the baton for the next period and get you further up the field. And so you've got to be extremely well coached in terms of how you run the ball, and you've got to be really good in terms of ball winners inside if you want to kick it, because Philly McMahon, he's big, he's strong, but he's also very, very quick.
Yeah.
And so you've got to match, you know, and so that's why the Kingston brothers asked a lot of questions the last day, because they're a big frame, they're difficult to get around, and then the quality of the ball on the diagonal.
Last question: is it fair to say that the gap is closing a little bit, or does it still feel like Dublin are kind of half a lap ahead at the moment?
No, I feel Dublin are still ahead, but you know, if I'm a Kerry person, I'm very, very excited about what I'm seeing. There's a rawness, there's a hunger there. I spoke about it as well today, about the ball that was turned over inside their own half with Darren O'Sullivan and James O'Donoghue working together to create that. And I think that is the game now. You bring everything you can offensively, but you've got to do it both ways as well, because teams are just so good going forward, and they're squeezing percentages every way they can, and so the game is getting better and better all the time in terms of the skill set of the players. Players are getting every generation. Players are getting more accurate. They're getting faster. They're getting stronger. They're getting more agile, and so it's becoming more and more difficult to defend.
But hang on, we're in a dark age for the sport. Apparently, if you read certain people, the game's never been worse. But it does really genuinely feel like the top games that we're seeing between the top two teams, the top three teams, when they play, is as good as any sport has ever been.
Well, if you take a snapshot of the three provincial finals of the weekend and you look at the highlights from them games, and you look at the quality and the pace and the intensity and the scores on the outside of the boot and on the diagonal and all these scores and the goals, and if you took that and you played that 20 years ago to an audience and said, this is the future, people will be going, that is absolutely staggering.
Yeah.
And in my lifetime, playing Gaelic football, from when I started, until I finished that 13-year period, the game completely changed, and more players are two-footed, so I think there's a lot of positives there also.
Jim, great stuff. Thanks a million.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.